This legal workshop is going to teach you everything you need to know to get started legally or to protect your existing business. And we're going to show you how to do it without paying those expensive lawyers. Let's jump in. Here's our legal workshop going through everything you need to know. So what is it that your business means for you? I'm looking for these three things: purpose, freedom with my time, and freedom financial. My mom was a single mom, ran her own business that allowed her to have not freedom financially, but freedom with her time. She never missed any of our games. She was there to pick us up, was very, very involved. For me, I'm striving for all three of those. So what does it mean for you? It's probably one of these three things or something else, but a business can give this to you like nothing else can. You know, when you're working for someone else, you cannot get freedom of time. Maybe you can get the other two, but to get all three, you've got to run your own business. So that's what I'm here to help you do today. All right, we're going to go through three main pillars that every single business has to have. These are very simple, and we'll go through them quickly, but in detail so you know how to implement them. We're going to make sure you can protect yourself personally so that when you're running your business, you are not personally exposed. So if something goes wrong with the business, you still have any nest egg you protected. And then we're going to go through the exact contracts. Obviously, we're talking legal here. Contracts is a major part of that. I'm Wesley. I'm a full-time practicing attorney in Charleston, South Carolina. We've got about 12, maybe 13 people in our office right now. We opened in 2014. I do all business work, lots and lots of litigation, meaning lawsuits in court, in front of judges, represent my clients. And I also do a lot of starting the businesses and trying to help prevent everything that can go wrong. You know, as I told you, my freedom is with time. Here's my family. This is what we like to do in our free time. We like to goof off and play and have a lot of fun. And you got to have freedom of time, and you need to have freedom of finances, or that's very helpful. Freedom of time is obviously a must. I got to be able to, be home to go, play with my family here. And that's kind of what makes me tick and why it's so important for me to help you get to the same place, because there's nothing richer than spending time with your friends or family or whoever it is, or a hobby. Sometimes it might just be a hobby that makes you tick. So I love this quote from John Wooden. I like sports, and so sports analogies always work for me. He's a famous basketball coach. He says, if you don't have time to do it right, when will you have time to do it over? The legal stuff isn't always the most fun. You're not going to get as excited as working on your marketing or pitching a client or sales or working on your product or services. But it's incredibly important. It takes a lot of discipline. And it's this type of discipline that'll get you to the next stage. And this is right. If you can't do it right now, you're going to have to figure out how to do it over. And really more aptly in the legal world, if you don't do it right the first time, you're going to have suffer consequences more likely than not. You might end up in a lawsuit or a dispute or an ongoing, problem that you otherwise could have avoided. All right. What are the types of problems we're running into with clients? Part of it is just dealing with problem clients, and we can show you how to avoid that. Disputes over money, services, deliverables, all sorts of stuff. You can lose money by not having the right agreement. You might get one of these cease and desist. You hear about some other business telling you to stop doing what you're doing. You can lose your business if you haven't set it up the right way. We're really wanting you to avoid, as you can see over and over, problems that cost you money and time and hurt your ability to keep moving forward. So things like costly lawsuits. You see these Instagram accounts that get mimicked. So stolen intellectual property. And then, disgruntled clients who are running their mouth about you online and, just a problem for you. So here's our process. You got to get an LLC, you got to get the right contracts, and you need to protect your intellectual property. That third one is a little more nuanced based on your business, but we'll talk you through all of these. Okay, step one, LLC. What is this doing for you? This is what protects your personal assets. If you don't have an LLC, you need to get one right now. There are very few times where it's not worth the benefit. I would say make sure you're not a sole proprietor. This is just operating a business with no entity. And if you're anything other than an LLC, like a corporation or partnership, make sure a CPA or a lawyer is telling you to do that. Otherwise, go get an LLC. Let me clear up one quick thing. As you hear this thing, S corporation, that is actually a tax filing. If you have an accountant saying you're an LLC and you file as an S, that's fine. Just make sure you have LLC somewhere on your business. This keeps the debts on the business and not on you personally. It makes you look professional, and it's the best bang for your buck I think you're probably going to get in terms of being able to sleep at night, because lawsuits, angry customers, disputes, debts, all this thing going on. The LLC protects you personally, so you can go back to your home and sleep nice and soundly. So you just absolutely got to get that LLC. All right, step 2, contracts. The contracts takes a little more effort. You gotta have the right clauses to see around the corners. You can't just download somebody's agreement, some PDF off of Google, because you don't even know if it's in the same country. You don't know what it's cut and paste from. And a lot of times you're better off having nothing than having a junk contract. So you wanna make sure you have the right clauses. So our goal here is really nothing more than just clarity. We want to talk about price. We want to talk about cancellation policies. We want to talk about the rules of us working together. These are the clauses that you got to make sure. You got to really define your services. You got to really define how much money it is owed for those services and when payment is due. And stop on this one just for a second. Let's say somebody owes you by the 5th of every month, but you just have no agreement or agreement that says they owe you $1,000 each month, but you don't have a date. Well, if you don't have a date, then when is it triggered? Well, you got to wait another 30 days till it extends. And what if you don't have a late fee policy? Well, they'll owe you the same thing 10 years from now if they don't pay. So you got to have a late fee policy. Our agreements that we use and that you should use have things that create urgency. So if someone doesn't pay you, it gets more and more expensive for them. And that helps you recover that money because they know it's going to keep going up. You got to have disclaimers in there. You got to make sure you're telling people what you can do and what your limits are. If you're doing something in health, but you're not a physician, you don't want to assume that they know that. You just want to explain it. So don't make assumptions. Some things seem obvious to us as, business owners, but just make it clear. Don't leave it up to our assumption. Attorney's fees. I'm going to go back to this payment one. So attorney's fees clause. This means if you have to get a lawyer to enforce the agreement, you can get that money back from that client. So now let's go back to the $1,000 that you're owed. And let's say this time we have a late fee and we have this attorney's fees clause. So you can go to that client and you can say, look, you owe me $1,000 and this late fee is about to hit you. Not only that is that we have an attorney's fees clause so that if we have to hire a lawyer, you're going to have to pay for that. So you can either figure out how to pay the $1,000 and we can set up some sort of arrangement. You don't have to, totally bust their chops here. You can give them a few months or whatever, but you can go to them and say, look, this is going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars if I have to hire a lawyer, because that's what the fees are going to be to go through the court process. You can handle it very politely, very respectfully, but you have tons of leverage now. And it's a no-brainer for them. They're going to find that $1,000 and you will have avoided not getting paid and being in a long-term dispute. If you're providing sessions that are like scheduled, you need to have the right cancellation clauses in there so that it's clear whether they have to pay for them or not if they cancel last minute. As a lawyer, the first thing I'm almost always looking at in an agreement is the termination. Is there 90 days, 60 days? You got to make sure you got the right stuff to protect you. You put a lot of time into preparing for something, or, let's say you've got a marketing company and, a lot of the work is on the front end. Well, what if they terminate after 45 days and you've done a huge amount of work, but it's a 6-month contract and it evens out financially, but the work is front loaded? You need to contemplate these things. So there are lots and lots of lawsuits out there, very litigious. You see injuries getting sued. You see businesses get sued. The stats that we found is if you actually have a contract that gets signed, only 1% of those are getting sued. So if you do this, there's a reward. It's not busy work. This is important stuff that can prevent headaches and help set you up with good stuff for your clients. All right, so here's the intellectual property. This is our third pillar. What I want you to do is just know your options. So a trademark protects your business name, your brand. So let's think Nike. The word Nike is a trademark. The swoosh, because it tells you that you're buying from Nike, that's a trademark. Just do it. That is a trademark. Those tell you who you're buying something from. If you see a swoosh on shoes, you know who made them. So anything that protects your brand, this is really, really important if you run like a social media as part of your brand or you have e-commerce. There's so many businesses out there. So you want to make sure that no one else has a trademark that can shut you down. And 2, you want to go grab that trademark as soon as you can afford to do it. Copyrights, those are a little bit different. That's more like a blog post. The exact words would be copyright. You see it with books, like the exact words, but not the ideas. It's the exact words or the exact images. So that's basically stopping people from plagiarizing, cutting and pasting, that sort of thing. More often, you'll be using trademarks to your advantage within something like an online business to make sure no one else can use your name. Sometimes we'll see people buying something from a different business thinking it was you, or vice versa, and then you get a bad review, thinking they are the same. So you don't want consumers to be confused. And once you have that trademark, you can tell the other people to change their name. Patents pretty much a whole different animal here. We're talking inventions. These are $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 to go through the patent process, and you get protection for that so that no one else can steal that patent or use that process. But again, you're talking inventions, things like, within computers and, like physical inventions like that. I'm going to go through a little bit more about these business names. You got to go to the uspto.gov. Y'all can email me if you've got a question about how to do this. Our legal checklist also walks you through where to go. You got to search your business name. You can't have a business name that someone else has already trademarked. And then your next step is to grab that trademark. Just to give you an idea of costs, I run a law firm all in after fees and everything else, government fees and legal fees. It's usually about $2,000 for a law firm to do it. You can do maybe some cheaper things elsewhere. Ours does a guarantee, so you get your money back, if it doesn't go through. But just to give you an idea of how much that sort of stuff costs, you can probably find it less expensive online. And you can also do it yourself. It's an application. They take more than a year now. When we started, it was about 6 months. Now it's probably closer to 12 or 18 months. So sometimes you're buying that time if you're paying someone to do it right. But anyway, you can do it yourself. There's some good resources on there. But again, before you even get to getting the trademark, make sure that name is not in use. Go look on hashtags, social media, elsewhere, and just make sure you're not using a name that is in your industry. So those are our 3 pillars, that LLC, those contracts, and your intellectual property. You get those 3, and that'll carry you a long way without having to go get a lawyer. Few other things, you need a business license. You go to your city, wherever you live. So I'm in the city of Charleston is where both my home and my office is. And so I would type in City of Charleston Business License Department, and there will be a process to fill out a form. It's different in every city or county, just wherever your local government is. And you can call them, you can email them, say, hey, what do I need to do? Question I get a lot, you're working out of your home, do you need one? Usually, yes, there's a home occupation business license. They still, trying to get a license from you. You do need a separate business bank account. Whenever you go get that LLC, and if you get an LLC on Drafted, we walk you through exactly how the order of these steps and how to do it. But you need to get a bank account with the LLC and that LLC's EIN on it. And that helps you keep everything very separate. You don't do anything out of that account other than business related. Otherwise, you can risk exposing yourself. So the LLC is awesome, but you got to do it right. It's very, very easy. You just have to know what the easy steps are. Insurance, this depends a little bit on the type of business you are. Anyone who's in health, fitness, nutrition, you should get insurance just because you could get blamed for some sort of injury. If you're a consultant, designer, graphic designer, those sort of things where the other parties are making these decisions, your exposure could be less. Anything physical, health related is going to be high. But I would always just go get a quote from a couple different agents and see what they come back and give you a little peace of mind. General liability insurance is basically someone gets injured by something you're doing, usually we'll cover that. And then also professional insurance. So it's like malpractice if you mess something up. So this is the best tip of all to help your business avoid a lot of these problems. And it's to work with good people. And I'm talking about your business partner. I'm talking about your clients. I'm talking about your vendors, your contractors. Yeah, a little bit of this is idealistic or wishful thinking. Everyone who starts a business has that gut feeling that they shouldn't work with somebody. But maybe we need it. I started a business with 0 clients. I was working for a large law firm, representing insurance companies, and I didn't like it. So I started over. I didn't move from another law firm. I basically reinvented, this was 10 years ago by now, doing business work because that's what spoke to me and what I enjoyed. But I didn't have any clients. So I get it. It's you got to get the clients. So you'll probably learn these lessons, but remember this when you're thinking about whether to work with somebody. You want to work with people that align with your values and what you can do for them. You want to make sure that you can help that person and that they'll appreciate it. You want to be working with people who you get along with, who, have the same goal. Y'all have a shared goal for what you can do for that client. Sometimes these clients think things are achievable that really aren't. And so you want to be real clear with them and make sure that you're able to talk about the pros and cons and the different parts of what you can do for them. But ultimately, you need to be working for good people with good people, and that will get rid of a vast amount of these problems. Truth be told, a lot of these agreements are written for that 5% or, hopefully it's not too much more than that. Clients that are just very difficult and they're just going to press and press. And so we got to have good clauses to protect us in case we get on the other end of one of those. Few common mistakes we see, just to kind of reiterate some of the same stuff, is Ineffective liability protection, you got to have an LLC. Just go get an LLC. IP, this would be like not looking up other business names or not protecting a trademark. Let's say you've got a good following, online, you got a good e-commerce thing going. You got to protect that IP so that nobody else can infringe on it. Agreements that are kind of just junk, they got poor architecture, meaning they don't work well together. They don't give you paid on X date and then a late fee and then an attorney's fee. So that works very well together, that little pairing. And you got to make sure it's enforceable and that it actually holds up in court. And then again, just working with the wrong people. We can't always predict that one. The other three we can do. This one, we just got to learn with your business, but trust our instincts on that one. Just a quick recap. We got to get an LLC. We got to get contracts, got to get an IP, got to be compliant with the business license, and we got to work with good people. You do these things and you won't need a lawyer for a very long time. Here's some of what Drafted Legal can help you with. You can do some of this on your own. An LLC, we'll file it for you within 7 days, get you an operating agreement, video explaining everything. And you can obviously reach out and I'll help talk you through anything you need or someone on our staff. Then we've got the legal bundle. This is, for coaches, consultants, anyone providing a service. These are 10 agreements drafted by me and I can help, talk you through anything, make sure this is the right thing for you. But it's designed to cover everything an entrepreneur would need early on. And then we've got a business law 101 course for the more nerdy of us around there who'd like to kind of learn a little bit more about the trademarks and learn about the different types of clauses and what's in there. There's little bite-sized videos. Not too different than what you'll see on our YouTube channel, but it's kind of organized in a teaching fashion. Again, that legal bundle, they're all attorney drafted, 10 templates. And then, you can take advantage of a consultation directly with me and I'll talk you through just your business. I wouldn't be your lawyer, obviously, wouldn't be attorney-client relationship there. But if you have any other questions or something like that, we can help answer you. Kind of a general information. Again, the clauses on these contracts really make a big difference and they can save you. I can't even tell you how much time and money it can potentially save you if you do it right. You can get paid on time. If you're going to have a refund policy, it needs to be effective, a cancellation policy, termination, IP. The disclaimers help protect you from somebody who says, oh, I didn't make all the money I said I would. And you say, well, I didn't tell you would make all that money. I told you I was going to do the best I could. And here's some ways we can help. And then choice of law, that keeps you with a home court advantage in whatever state you're in. You don't want to go to someone else's state for some sort of dispute. And then for us, we're trying to help you avoid all these bad things that unfortunately we represent clients on all the time, and they're very hard to be inexpensive. For example, if someone hires us in a dispute, it's a $5,000 retainer fee, but that's never it. I mean, yeah, sometimes we can resolve it really quickly, but if somebody's really suing you and, we got weak agreements and there's emails all over the place and there's not a clean contract, I mean, you're talking tens and thousands of dollars. So we want to avoid this pitfalls. We want to save time because it becomes so negative when we're thinking about this kind of new enemy we have that's suing us. They're very professional. They give you peace of mind. A lot of times I think they attract the right clients. This isn't always true, but someone who's scared to sign an agreement is a red flag. I recently had a client with this exact problem. They refused to sign the agreement. And then she provided the services anyway, and she paid the first month and then immediately wanted all her money back, even though it's a marketing process. And that obviously takes a lot of time to, let the algorithms work and try different things. And it ended up being about a 4-month long process with about 6 negative reviews that came from it. And then you got to, if things aren't going well, you need to have legal recourse and you need to have the right clauses to have your back. So that's what this can do for you. That consult I talked about, we charge a lot of money for these consults because we're busy. I got kids I want to get home to, and I try to provide tons of value. I've been doing this a long time and, really will focus in on how I can help your business answer any legal questions. So we'll open that consultation up for you if you purchase that legal bundle. All right. So here's some questions we get regularly. This is just a few more minutes of these. When do I need legal? My answer to that is simple. As soon as you're interacting with customers or clients. If it's just a brainchild, like, oh, I might do this one day, you can hold off. But the minute you put your website up and you're trying to provide service and you're trying to make money, you need legal. You need an LLC, you need contracts, you need to be thinking about IP. This is a good question I always get. Some of the stuff online is like Delaware and Nevada and all that. Don't listen to any of that junk. It's mostly just some sales pitch. It's true. A lot of it's true, but for very, very limited people. So again, if a lawyer or CPA tells you to go to Delaware or Wyoming and Nevada have really good setups for like rental properties. So there are a lot of really good uses. Delaware is great if you're trying to raise capital from, investors. We're talking raises, millions of dollars, and you're trying to look attractive. So those things make a lot of sense, but they make very little sense, maybe no sense, and scammy level sense if you're running a service business that's one-to-one with clients, because you are not only going to have to get an LLC in Delaware, you're going to have to get one in your home state as well. So you're just doing double the work and you have double the fees, and it doesn't add anything to you. So your state, where you live and will live, is where you should get your LLC. Do you need an attorney? No, you don't need an attorney early on. You know, that's the whole reason we exist. The whole reason for this workshop is trying to help you understand. A lawyer doesn't have a magic wand that he, touches the contracts with. It's all about understanding the pitfalls. And so that's what we put a lot of time into. And if you can take these agreements and look at them, and we make it really easy to just add your information in there, and that will do a great job on protecting you early on. And as you grow and make money, you should budget for getting, a lawyer in there to customize it exactly to you. But you don't want to spend $5,000 with a lawyer to, bless your business and to get super, super customized until you have a business that's really making money and to protect. Now, you do want to protect yourself, and this is where Drafted comes in, is we can get those protections for you without the attorney. So you can get the LLC, you can get the contracts, and you can understand the trademark and the IP as well. How do you work with these templates? We always get that when someone's, asking a question about whether this is going to work for them. They're Word documents, and they got red highlights on where you fill in your business name or your service that you're providing. And then they come with videos where I walk you through what to do, and then also a PDF that explains each clause, like in layman's term, and whether you need to do anything to it. So it's kind of whatever works best for you. Lots of different options on how to understand that. Some testimonials, a lot of time we're just getting back. It's peace of mind, how easy they're to use, saving on fees, again, easy for use. Again, put my mind at ease, easy to understand. And that's our goal here. Our purpose here is trying to help people who are running businesses, trying to get more time, with their kids or their, I like to play golf. I want to spend time with my kids. I want to spend time with my wife. I want to spend time with my friends playing golf. I want to relax, so there's all these things. And I also want to really help people do those same things. So, understanding your why, you see this a lot in the Simon Sinek and, the understanding your why with your business. And this is mine, and there's probably some overlap with yours, and whatever it is, we want to make sure we can help you get to there and how this can work for you. So I hope that was all very, very helpful. Please reach out if you have any questions. If you buy the legal bundle, we'll get to talk with a consultation. So I look forward to meeting you, and I'm eager to try to help you with your business. So let us know if you have any questions, and go get them.